My concern this morning has to do with Senate File 481, which came to the House, and I think John and Kevin, you are maybe aware of this. It came out of the House Public Safety Committee to be taken up on the floor of the House and then has to go back to the Senate. It has to do with the enforcement of immigration law. It belongs with the federal government rather than to try to enlist local authorities to serve kind of as quasi-federal agents for ICE. I'd like to know what you plan to do and what kind of action you plan to take on this legislation, on this bill.
All right.
And thank you.
Thank you for your question, and we'll let the answers roll.
Well, thank you for coming, and thanks to our sponsors as well for sponsoring us every month to have this forum. This is a bill that has passed the Senate. It passed the Senate last year. It started as a very broad bill, but by the time it passed the Senate, it was narrowed down to one very simple thing: that if there is someone that is here illegally and they have committed a crime and they are in jail or prison in Iowa, the prison or jail must comply with the federal government and the ICE officials. I think there's a lot of misinformation about how this is going to create people driving around looking to arrest people because they're here illegally. That's not what this bill does. All it does is says, if you're here illegally, if you're in prison or jail, those officials must comply with ICE. That's what the bill does. It passed the Senate last year.
This is about a 90% federal issue. And the part of 10% that I support is law enforcement in our communities. And I haven't read this bill, so I can't really speak to the nuances of it yet, but I will as it comes forward. But I will tell you that my take on it is always to err on the side of law enforcement and public safety. And so I'll research more of the bill that came over from the Senate and learn more about the issue.
Two quick thoughts on this kind of ICE. One is that certainly Pastor Napier mentioned that the bulk of the bill is already in law federally and is reinforcement instead of reform. Another way of saying the same thing. Secondly, our very sponsors, our Ankeny Chamber, in my first term in office, at the board level and at the office level, came and enlightened me on a local restaurateur, one of our many minorities that are doing a fine job in town. One of the owners got iced and was in Omaha for a significant amount of time, and was honored to have that just pointed out to me, to look at what's good and bad about how that can work, and that was a bad example, and I was happy to help our chamber at least advocate for what ought to be different, and then let the poor wife visit her husband, even though it had to just be on TV on different floors in the same place when she got to Omaha. Things were heavy-handed in that case. They're better now, and I just wanted to share that this chamber has stood up for this issue only when it was unreasonably enforced.